Tallahassee is no stranger to racism. The word defines our past and is relevant to our present. In the past, a segregated culture enforced racial discrimination in a tradition of legal violence against African Americans. Groups, including the Ku Klux Klan, terrorized African Americans through violence and aggression.
Examples of history: 1937, three black men were taken from the Leon County Jail, taken out on what is now the Mahan Highway, and shot to death. That's considered the last lynching in Tallahassee. Even though they were shot to death, they were lynched. In 1959, a Florida A&M student, Betty Owens, was taken captive by four white men and raped. It was one of the highlights in some ways of Tallahassee racial relations, in that all four white men were convicted of the rape, something that might not have happened.
To this day, covert racism still exists in modern society. It can be expressed through jokes, comments, and/or actions.
I'm a security guard, and at some places I work with, majority Caucasian people. They usually try and be in their house before I get behind them, even though I'm filled with security. I have security uniform on sometimes.
Redlining, the practice of denying services to residents of certain areas based on the racial or ethnic makeups of those areas. Examples of redlining are used through housing, railroads, and restaurants.
Yeah, redlining would be when there's certain areas of a city where predominantly Caucasians live, or predominantly African Americans, low-income people live, and it'll be an apartment owner saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have any room here for a black man," and a white man can walk in 30 minutes later, "Hey, I'm looking for an apartment." "Oh yeah, we got 3 openings." So the white person's going to be living in a wider area, while the black person gets kind of slowly sent down to more lower income areas where the apartment complex owner thinks they'll fit in more. Like, it's not them thinking like.
In Tallahassee, there is a common concept referred to as across the tracks, signifying the black side, the tracks that are closer to FAMU, and the Caucasian side of town closer to FSU.
Honestly, it's sad, but to an extent, many people demarcate locations of different cultures and societies by railroads. A lot of the time you go north of the railroad, you hit FAMU area, you know what I mean? Like, you go south of the railroad, you hit Tallahassee, White, and then however sad it is, if you go across the railroad, you immediately get to lower income houses. You can tell an immediate difference from the other side of the railroad. And throughout a lot of different cities, that's how they very often demarcate, because it's seen almost as a wall. Like, it's a split, you know, when you cross it, you're moving into this side of town, and you cross the other way, you're moving back to this side of town. So mentally it gives you oh, you live on this side of the railroad or this side of the railroad.
Restaurants closer to FAMU tend to be less healthy than restaurants closer to FSU. Fast food restaurants, including McDonald's and Taco Bell, are more frequent on the more predominant African American side. Healthier options are found closer to FSU.
There's a food desert on the south side. There's only like one supermarket, and around us is basically fast food places, and not even like high quality like Chick-fil-A or something. It's McDonald's, it's Burger King, it's Taco Bell. And once you go to Tennessee, where the majority of FSU students are, there's different types of restaurants. There's healthier restaurants. There's different options.
According to the NAACP's website, 49% of African American men have been arrested by the age of 23.
That African Americans are, 1, more likely to be stopped for no reason than other races, 2, are more likely to receive a fine or be taken to jail for whatever charge that may be, and 3rd, are more likely to receive harsher sentences and or jail time than any other race. I'm not exactly sure if that would be considered racism or just straight up discrimination, because discrimination is acting upon the belief, and that's clearly what they're doing in that case, which is very wrong.
Where cops pull over my car, it's never gotten really pulled over before, just because my buddy RG's driving it. I mean, even one time the cops frisked down these 3 football players I went out with, even though I was with them. And they didn't even look at me, they didn't touch me once. I mean, it's just more like real deep stereotyping, which is in itself racism.
I believe that there's only one race, and that's the human race, and we all should treat each other as such, and not treat each other by the physical characteristics that we have, mainly the color of our skin.
There ain't no solution to racism. To be completely honest with you, I mean, we'll get better, we'll get, nicer about it, but if in the end, 100 years from now, black people are seen the exact same as white people, we're gonna have a new people to be racist against. It's just human nature to want to be better to someone, and human nature to dislike people.
I believe racism starts at home. I feel like you train your kids to have a certain attitude when they walk out the house. So in order to change it, I believe people start to have to start teaching their children differently, and also the media, because it plays a big part in showing us what is going on around the world. And the only thing we see is like white cops beating up black children, or white kids going to college and black kids not going to college. Then it just reinforces these attitudes that we have.
I don't necessarily think that there's an end-all be-all solution to racism, but what I will say is I feel like just general education and acceptance of each other, because so much racism is caused because of just not knowing the other person's perspective, not knowing the social class that they came from, the social strain that they've experienced in their groups, and that's where a lot of it's kind of fostered from. And I feel like for the most part, that's really the only way to be the solution to racism, is for us to just accept each other.
When everybody, you're already seeing it today. When you see black and white kids walking through the mall together, dating each other, rooming together, this generation, the millennials, is already starting to get it. You would hope that we get to a point where everyone feels that way, that we all socialize and hire each other and mingle and do things without thinking of our differences. We'll be aware of our differences, but that the differences don't deny us the opportunity to feel equal to each other.
I'm trying to visualize how to get it right, but my vision's so blurry. Trying to slow it down, stay close to the ground, but we're always in a hurry.